It's the RJ Ochoa Show on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. What's going on in Jerry's world? What's the latest from Cowboy Camp? Find out right here, Friday mornings at 7:30 and 9:30 with the manager and editor-in-chief of Blogging the Boys, RJ Ochoa. Here's Robin Rudy.
That was an intro. Welcome back to welcome back to the RJ Ochoa Show.
What the hell?
He's Ray J. I am Rob Thompson. We are but the warm-up to RJ Ochoa. Hey, man, how are you doing this morning? Good to see your smiling face.
Hi, RJ.
I'm doing great, guys. Welcome to my show where I make up rules and I set the spread. We're having turkey sandwiches for lunch.
I'm in.
Chips on the side.
We're in.
Yeah, just to be smart. You know what I mean?
Well,
cut corners if we can.
I'm down with that, but hold the bread. But this is what I'll say about RJ Ochoa and RJ. RJ Ochoa is a slot.
He's a slot wide receiver.
I'm outside. I'm inside. I'm outside. I'm inside.
He's a possession guy.
You compare him to James Pledger, it ain't the same. What would you say to that, RJ?
That's a really mean thing to do to Pledge, liking him to AJ Brown in this situation. Look, AJ is one of the best receivers in the NFL.
Okay.
He's on a incredibly good team.
Okay.
He had an amazing season last year after that team traded for him. They gave him the contract. He more than justified everything that they gave to him. So I don't understand why he is obsessed with talking about CeeDee Lamb. I mean, like, I don't.
Well, he didn't start it, RJ. He didn't start it. Pro Football Focus kind of started it, and then his Twitter blew up, and he was like, hey, he just responded to his mentions going crazy. As you know, popular people like yourself and AJ Brown, sometimes y'all's mentions go crazy.
I just think, receivers are lauded in today's NFL for being able to play all of the positions.
Good point.
I mean,
great point.
Again, AJ's very talented, but he's basically waving the white flag and saying he can't play the slot.
Wow. See, is that what
did
you just spin that?
That is a spin.
Are you a dryer?
Yes,
are you
sir.
a washing machine? How are you going to spin that?
Again, in all seriousness, I don't miss the days where Cowboys only had Des Bryant lining up at the X position, only had Terrence Williams lining up at the Y position,
There's
and
something
only
to that.
had Cole Beasley lining up in the slot. I mean, you're a much more predictable offense that way. The Cowboys don't have a tried and true, old school, archaic slot receiver because everybody can do it. And guess what? The best receivers in the NFL now line up in the slot because it's all about creating mismatches. It's all about getting in
That
space,
is a valid
open
point.
space. That's CeeDee Lamb does really well. So wow, what a loser CeeDee is for doing something really well at an incredible.
Okay, RJ. With that being
RJ.
said, as his agent, and the imminence of what we assume to be them, not only picking up, which they already have, but going ahead and giving him the next deal. Do you expect it to happen this summer?
I mean, a stable and functional franchise would do it this summer.
Okay. Well, we're dealing with the Cowboys.
Right. I mean, they have not done this at this point in a very long time. And being given the extension of the first round pick right after they picked up the 5th-year option as they get ready for their 4th season, which is obviously, the option year. And so the only real example since this became a thing, I don't know if everyone's aware, this became a thing with the 2011 CBA. The only real examples are the offensive linemen, Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, although Zach Martin went down to the wire a little bit. So, the Cowboys seem to continue to, for whatever at this point, the Forbes ranking hasn't come out yet, but it'll come out and it will say they're the most valuable sports team in the world. And they think that should be a variable in contract discussions when it has no bearing whatsoever. So if I was representing CeeDee, I would say you're not taking anything worth less than market rate, dude. That's the way this dance goes. You would be smart to pay it now, Cowboys, because guess who's eligible next year? Jamar Chase. And you want to beat Justin Jefferson before he sets the market.
Oh, RJ's interesting point. And also, we've seen what guys do in their contract year because we just talked about Chase Young. And I feel like the Commanders are really rolling the dice, RJ, because it's his contract year. And I would think he's going to end up with 12, 13 sacks. Then you're going to have to overpay. And I think the same thing could happen with CeeDee. But on the other side, RJ, if I'm his agent, I'm saying if they shove something in front of me today I'm signing it because with Cooks and with a fully healthy Gallup, that 107 catches I had last year, those 9 touchdowns may come down. Do you agree with that?
It may. Now, to be fair, CeeDee's contract year would be next season. So even if he
so,
did,
oh yeah, because he got
regret,
they picked up the
Right.
2024 option
Right.
for $18 million, right?
Right. So I mean, technically he could bounce back and have the super year in the contract year. But I mean, I've never understood why you want to end up in a situation like that where you're betting against, because if you lose no matter what if you're the team. If the player is awesome, you lose because you have to pay even more. If the player stinks, well, they stink for you. You know what I mean? Like, so then like that's losing in a whole different way.
Yeah.
CeeDee has proven himself. He's been successful without Dak Prescott for a large part of his 3-year career to this point. This seems pretty simple. And again, you want to beat Justin Jefferson, because if Justin Jefferson's deal broke later this afternoon and CeeDee Lamb sat at the negotiating table on Monday, he could say, I want that, and add tax to it. And we can all sit here and say, CeeDee, bro, you're not as good as Justin Jefferson. Oh, okay. Well, do you want me or not? Like, this is a supply and demand world. And that is the concept that people always fail to realize when it comes to stuff like this.
This is RJ Ochoa of Blogging the Boys. Make sure you're following them and he on the socials. If you're a Cowboys fan, you know what he does. The couple things before we start talking about the draft. We haven't talked to you since the draft began. It looks like the Cowboys have handled their salary cap in pretty good space. They've got what are they, about nearly 17 million and to play with. They're going to spend probably 5 to sign all these rookies. That's kind of what I'm reading. That's a lot of money left, and we put this with a backdrop of Zeke still as a free agent. Is it looking more likely that he could come back, considering the money that the Cowboys still have and the running back room as it sits in the draft of Vaughn? Tell us what you think about the running back situation and where Zeke might actually land.
Well, so the only way I think Zeke factors into their, calculus right now is he's a post-June 1st cut. So about a little bit under a month from now, they'll actually get some salary cap relief because they'll be on the other side of June 1st. But, I mean, I understand that that's a story until it's not. The fun I've had with it is, I don't know if y'all know, his number 21 was given away to Stephon Gilmore. But his very first tweet after being released, he said he wanted number 15 back, which he couldn't wear at the time of being drafted, but now running backs can. That's obviously the number he wore at Ohio State. That would be the most Cowboys thing of all time, to bring him back and have him wear 15 and then sell all the 15 Zeke jerseys.
Seems appropriate.
Like part 2, like a Kobe 24 situation.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the drafting of Deuce Vaughn, I mean, I just think that the Cowboys are, I think, fine entertaining the idea, fine helping him by keeping his name in the mix a little bit, but all of their actions so far suggest that they're moving on from a football standpoint.
Best pick and worst pick in the Cowboys draft, RJ?
I mean, a lot of people would say the Deuce Vaughn pick, and there's obviously a lot of fun.
I thought you were going to go tight end.
I mean, I continue to fall more in love with that. I'm not quite there yet.
Okay.
But I mean, we're only on maybe we're moving in together. Myself and that pick, like we're not, we're not serious yet. Like we're ready to vacation together, start like burning our miles on each other. But I'd say the Mozzie Smith pick. I mean,
okay,
especially because and like we talked about last week, it represents a change in philosophy. I mean, I really that is honestly what excites me the most. That he is proof positive that they're willing to think in a way that they haven't been willing to think for decades at this point in time. And so, it's people talk about like, oh, well, look at the Super Bowl team of recent years. They have elite tight ends, Travis Kelce and Dallas Goedert, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, but what they all have in common? They all have elite run-stuffing, monsters at defensive tackle. Obviously, Javon Hargrave on the Eagles got paid by the Niners, who are a very good team. Chris Jones on the Chiefs, Aaron Donald on the Rams, Vita Vea on the Bucs. Like, you got to have that dude. And so the Cowboys finally have that dude. So he's the one I'm most excited about. It's chalk, but the one I'm least excited about. So we did 2 streams. We did one that was for rounds 4 and 5, and one that was for rounds 6 and 7. So the plan was to take a little bit of a break right after 5, like a 2-minute break, eat a PB&J. But no, the Cowboys wanted to trade up to the first pick in the 6th round. So it was chaotic around the Blog of the Boys universe. And Eric Scott Jr., the corner that they traded up for, wasn't even on a lot of super draft experts boards And so that in and of itself is kind of why I'm out on it. But trading up for it, paying an extra tax on it, I mean, and additionally, I mean, where's he going to fit on the roster? Like, you know, they've got Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore, Deron Bland, Kelvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright, Jordan
Great
Lewis.
point.
I've already the 6 corners. Like,
Great point,
how
RJ.
are you carrying a 7th corner? So the numbers don't make as much sense to me with Eric Scott Jr. But I'm sure he's a nice guy. You know,
but was the Scott because he's the body type that Quinn likes? I never could quite figure out why they jumped up to get him because he's not fast. He's got long arms. I don't know what the love affair is. Have you heard any reason?
That's why he had it as the worst.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, have you heard any reasoning behind the scenes? Because they obviously knew they had a full cornerback room, but they still went and got him.
No, I mean, he's got the 3rd longest wingspan of any cornerback that were eligible for the draft. And
God.
look, I love Dan Quinn. I really do. I don't think he walks on water the way a lot of Cowboys fans do. And I also, you know, before Dan Quinn's arrival, people lamented how the Cowboys let their coaches, you know, affect the draft. Rod Marinelli and Tristan Hill. Why are we letting Rod make the decisions? Coaches coach. Yeah, exactly. Let the scouts scout. Dan Quinn wanted Nashawn Wright. Everybody shut up. Dan Quinn likes Nashawn Wright. All right, so we have to have Nashawn Wright. That failed miserably. And we're sitting here 2 years later not even willing to count on him except for as a spot on the roster because he is a 3rd-round pick. So maybe this is the one thing that Dan Quinn isn't good at. Like Dan Quinn has a type. He's like, oh, that movie has Seth Rogen and you know, Jason Segel. Judd Apatow directed it. Like, I'm in. Buy my ticket. I'll see you there.
Caesar Sportsbook updated their win totals, RJ. And March 27th, they did the last one. Then they just updated it yesterday. Cowboys 9.5 over under. I mean, it's tough to say. We haven't done training camp. So for what it's worth right now.
I mean, like, and I say this pretty humbly. I think that's probably the lowest you'll get them at. So if you do want that,
Rob
I
said
would
this.
certainly pounce now.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won 12 games each of the last 2 years. The one before that, their quarterback was out for 75% of the season. The one before that, they won 9 games. The one before that, they won 10 games. I mean, they're, you know, I promise, like I say this all the time, you will never do your Christmas shopping with them mathematically eliminated or them out of the mix. I mean, so 9.5 wins in a 17-game season world. I'd take the over. I mean, they don't have as easy of a schedule this year, and obviously a week from now, I believe we'll have the actual schedule.
Right.
But you know, last year they played the AFC South. They swept the Giants. It probably won't be easy to do that this year. I mean, so those things play a role and those things have an impact, but they do get to play some fraud like the Chargers. I mean, so ultimately I do trust them. I think, you know, I think the more struggle point is like 10.5, but 9.5 is easy.
I agree.
I'm not sweating that too much.
Completely in on that. Now, I have a theory, RJ, that in the draft, the Cowboys had their feet up on the desk, ready to draft tight end out of Utah. And Buffalo jumped up and grabbed the tight end they were chasing. And they're happy with Mozzie, however we want to say it. But really the intent was to get a tight end. Do you think I'm off base on this?
Tell him he is.
It depends who you believe. I mean, like, it really does. You know, all the reports out of Buffalo are that the Cowboys wanted him. That's why Buffalo had to trade up to 25 to get him. They sensed it. They knew Brandon Beane, he's really smart and he's good at his job. The conversation out of Dallas is obviously, hey, no, we're good. We were never really considering him. And I think it's worth mentioning that, you know, from a Dallas perspective, those reports have come from highly credible, you know, people on the local beat. These aren't just like, you know, wild, obscure reports or anything like that. That being said, I think if they had taken Michael Mayer, I'd be more inclined to believe this.
Really? Okay. Wrong tight end.
I mean, right. I mean, well, that would have been some justification towards, hey, you really wanted to come away with this with a tight end. And what's more is, like, Luke Schoonmaker isn't just your pure, you know,
he's a tackle who can kind of catch.
See, RJ, he's not in love with them like you are.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's what Luke is. But Dalton is just a receiver. He's just a bigger receiver, so he can line up obviously on the line of scrimmage and play tight end. But so that was not the archetype the Cowboys went for on Luke Schoonmaker. So again, if we use some deductive reasoning, like if they were in love with that model, right? They were like, man, I really have to have this Ford Expedition. You know, they would have gone and bought the Kia Sorento, but they did. They went and bought a Fusion. You know, like, what are you talking about? Like, this isn't the same physical mold. Like, these are different, you know, vehicles.
Well, what's up with the Mountain West? Is Fehoko the next Mountain West Cowboy player, RJ, to have success? You got Van Der Esch, you got Lawrence, Deron Bland stepped on the scene and did some damage. Can Fehoko be the next one?
I think I'm less excited about this than
Star. You thought that was a reach?
I'm not.
I heard Chris Canty say that this was a reach as well, and I respect Canty's opinion.
I'm not willing to categorize it as a reach, but I do think that we do some reverse justifying around the draft. I mean, that's just
that's what we all do it as fans, though. We all do it,
right? And so the conversation is, well, they're going to beef him up and kick him inside,
right?
Okay, well, they drafted a defensive tackle in the first round. That was supposed to be the answer, and I also don't like the idea of like, okay, you've done this thing, like all of your tapes suggest this one thing. We want you to do something different. You know, we want to actually change your physical mold and have you do something different. And I recognize there's a lot of projection involved there, and you believe he has the skill set. For what it's worth, he was in the 99th percentile as far as rush defense is concerned. So that's not bulked up. So if you buy into that, I mean, he is capable of stopping the run, which seems to be their primary focus. They're tired of getting run over the middle, and so he helps in that capacity.
Is the 2.5 sacks in the last 8 games the reason for Micah Parsons saying he wants to gain weight but not too much weight? Do you feel like he broke down at the end of the season and he felt like he needed to be a little bit stronger other than just quick around the edge? What do you feel like the reasoning is for Micah Parsons beefing up?
I think I mean, if you consider him a full-time defensive end, he's just a smaller one. I mean, he's incredibly powerful. It might be the most powerful one, but he's just small. I mean, he's, from a physical perspective, easier to handle than a lot of other, you know, like line him up next to DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, they're just two different dudes from a physical composition standpoint. So, you know, Micah knows, and I will always defect towards opinion of Micah. But the biggest thing that's going to help Micah as a pass rusher isn't putting on 7 or 8 pounds. It's Monty Smith. That's you know, that's what's helping unlock things a little bit more for him because teams figured him out. Teams figured out, like, we're just going to rush right at him and force him to kind of be everything, and he can't. I mean, he can be the strongest dude in the world. That's just not the way this game can ultimately be played.
RJ Ochoa joining us here for his weekly drop-off. Make sure you're following all the stuff at bloggingtheboys.com. I want to talk a couple of things about the draft that I found interesting, and then the money that's left over. First of all, I thought that it might be possible that they draft a kicker. What are they going to do with kicker here? Are they
draft?
Well, I mean, at some point they're going to have to address this. And I'm not saying draft, but at some point, the kicker was, I mean, they survived, and you could even say thrived in chaos last year. But at some point, I'd like to have some sort of solid grounded kicker, and they haven't had that in 3 years.
I would only say I'm far from Brett Maher's primary defendant, but it was really not a chaotic fight. It was just a chaotic finish.
Right.
And he was one of the best kickers. He should have been a Pro Bowler, honestly. Like, he was one of the best kickers in the NFL. You know, you can make an argument that bringing him back has some merit, but I understand people don't want to do that. But every mock draft you looked at from every Cowboys fan had them taking Jake Moody. I mean, they got 2 Wolverines, and he was the one they missed out on. And he went really early, obviously, and so that just kind of made it what it was. But yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know if you guys know who the best kicker on their roster is. It's Tristan Vizcaíno, and all due respect to Tristan, I mean, you know, you can make lemonade out of a lot of things. And I don't know that you know, that is something that constitutes anything sugary or sweet. So Robbie Gould is the, you know, player that a lot of people kind of connect the Cowboys.
Former Bear.
He's on the open market. He's never missed a kick in the playoffs. Former Bear, but highest point of his career came with San Francisco, not Chicago.
Obviously. You know what?
Robbie Gould's the name. It's also worth mentioning that Robbie Gould, upstanding human, when the Niners wanted to get in Brett Maher's head at the beginning of the divisional round game, Robbie Gould was the one who stepped in and was like, guys, let's chill out. We're crossing some some
An unwritten
unspoken
rule?
rules, right? Yeah, like we're doing stuff that isn't cool in the kicker world. So good for him standing up for Brett.
One last thing I want to throw out there. You're the one that turned me onto this. Is Micah putting on weight, talking like a defensive end because of contract, and he doesn't want to be paid like a linebacker, wants to be played by an end? Is this like a preemptive strike to say, hey, I'm really a defensive end, pay me like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like all, and he is a defensive end.
Oh, yeah.
He is.
He's a hybrid
who plays but I mean, a hybrid implies that he plays, defensive end 50% of the time. He plays it like 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Like there are certainly times where he drops back. But this is tricky. I mean, and it's not just a difference in money. It's a universe of a difference in money. I think the most contentious example that we've seen has been Jimmy Graham, pay me like a wide receiver, not like a tight end.
Yes.
And that didn't work out for him. He did not win his arbitration or whatever it was. And so this is smart of Micah. I mean, it's also the truth. I mean, so it benefits everyone to kind of just wave the white flag and admit what we've known all along.
That's RJ
My
Ochoa.
dog.
This has been his show. You going to see Guardians this weekend? You know, introduce young Ochoa to the world of the Marvels.
I think the last movie I saw in theaters was Avengers Endgame, the week of the 2019 NFL draft. I haven't been to the movie theater in a really, really, really long time. I know, but like I could just sit at home and rent something and eat my food and be barefoot. Like what movie theaters can let me be barefoot?
Well, there's a few in San Antonio. They wouldn't mind. That's RJ Ochoa, living life in
My
the Valley,
dog.
sitting in with us every week.
Much
Stay
love,
healthy,
bro.
stay good, man. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Enjoy the Kentucky Derby.